Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Thought I'd switch up the format this time and just show some gameplay from a dev test I was lucky enough to slide into the other day while I talk about what happened there. A couple days ago, the devs at SIG dropped in on the PTU doing some testing in Gun Rush and Arena Commander. All we heard about it was that they were simply testing core gameplay, but I think this is significant for a couple key reasons, so I wanted to casually talk a bit about what it means here and how I hope it's going over there. Yada yada, University of Stanton rant is in session. So to get started, I want to say I love to see this happening, and I'm so happy I had the privilege to get in on it. If there's any one thing we absolutely need to see more of from CIG, it's developers playing the game. It would be literally impossible for certain ideas, certain design decisions, certain bugs to ever make it out of the lab, I feel, if the people working on them have an actual understanding of their impact. If they play the game and run into the things that we see every day, something that hurts our experience, it will hurt them. And when something hurts, you become motivated to fix it. The fact that so many developers, particularly in this project, don't play their own game is, to me, one of the key reasons we have so many of the problems we do, at the level of severity we do, and persisting for as long as they are. As I've said many times before, the biggest thing we need from developers on a project this size is for them to pay attention to what they're doing. You can't do that if you aren't at least occasionally keeping your finger on the pulse of the game and understanding how and why it plays the way it does. A good chef tastes their work along the way. So right up front, it made me really glad to see this and to see it as a concerted effort from so many developers all together at the same time. Props, let's do this again sometime. Now, granted, this test was just a few matches in Arena Commander, but let's go back to the stated purpose of the test: core gameplay, and what that means. This wasn't in the persistent universe, it wasn't running through the process of kiosks and terminals and ship flight and all the complicated stuff, but it was core gameplay. It was the essence of moving your character around, crouching, going prone, sprinting, leaning, aiming, shooting, and it's in Gun Rush, which means it's decoupled entirely from having to worry about any gear or weapons or worry about that stuff at all. It's pretty much a flattened, level playing field experience from that perspective, and if you want to test what it feels like to just move around and survive at a fast pace as a character in the world, well, I think they nailed it with the Gun Rush selection. And test it they were. I saw all manner of playstyles here. You had people running and gunning, you'd see some dolphin diving from time to time, you'd find people leaning and playing prone trying to take advantage of a certain area. These guys were thinking on their feet, and hey, it's Gun Rush. Having to adapt to unfamiliar circumstances is part of the game, and you have a brand new one every time you get a kill in the form of a different weapon to use. From the community, we also had Hannah888, Franpire, and Debalta show up, who took no time sliding up the leaderboard. If the devs needed a test to happen and a fight for their lives, well, they got it. What do I think their takeaways might be from this? First and foremost, I hope, the lag. It's been universally acknowledged for a while now that Star Marine and Star Citizen in general is pretty unresponsive. There's somewhere in the ballpark of 100 milliseconds or worse anytime you go to perform any action. Pull out a med pen, fire your weapon, start a reload. The game just always seems to be playing behind the curve a little bit, and you end up watching what happened play out after the fact. Anyone who's put any amount of time into the Star Marine modes have stories of players spinning in circles when they come into view, players going down and hearing the kill credit notification only to see their target pop right back up alive and kill them back a second later. Should go without saying, but that is not the experience a good and fun FPS delivers. It hasn't been for the past 30 plus years of FPS history, and out of all the hopes I have for tests like this where developers get into the trenches themselves, my biggest one is that they take notice of this in a big way, because probably nothing ruins this experience for anyone more than the game lying or showing them what's happening late. Listen guys, as human players, we're already contending with the interface layers of our eyes, our optic nerves, our cognition, our carpal tunnel riddled wrists, our PCs with the last 3 years of bloatware, our internet connections that ISPs just can't seem to stop fucking with. We don't need any help slowing things down at any other stages, let alone the game itself underperforming. That's also my philosophy when it comes to designing character control and interface in games, but that's a talk for another time. Second, I hope they start to realize what a god-awful weapon set this actually is. While a couple of the SMGs and ARs kind of function intuitively, a lot of them, particularly the shotguns, DMRs, and snipers, are just weird. Now granted, a lot of the weakness of this weapon set is linked to the unresponsiveness of the game, and sometimes not really being able to flick a shot properly because you just don't know when the gun is actually going to decide to go off. but it also feels like some guns might have a little extra delay built in, or a hard delay that keeps you, for example, from starting a charge up for a subsequent shot. This is a huge no-no for me, and I'm genuinely hoping most of these guys got stuck and frustrated on certain guns in the gun rush lineup, like a lot of us do, just so they can understand how miserably tuned some of these guns actually are, and how poor of an experience it makes for. Third, I'll go ahead and slide a couple things about UI and environment interaction here. Unless you've really learned these guns ahead of time, a lot of them actually look pretty similar from the back. It wouldn't hurt if they could visually distinguish them a little more, or maybe pop that cool little UI up that they've been working so hard on, and actually show what the weapon is a little more consistently. I also hope they're frequently running into that problem up close where your gun arm suddenly gets a boner and points at the ceiling. I get the cinematic cuteness and all, but come on, this should be something you do consciously as a control if you want to. It shouldn't happen to you as the result of a janky environment or someone suddenly popping too close. And fourth, I hope they had a good time anyway and imagine it as the better, more functional game that all of us want to see. I want to see that hope, but also a renewed effort and attention to detail on that front manifest itself in future patches. As server meshing and adjustments to these modes are delivered, it will be more crucial than ever to keep coming back and testing that core gameplay to make sure it's actually there and a pleasure to experience rather than a series of recurring pain points. Because if the game you're making for people's enjoyment and billing all over internet ads as playable now isn't a pleasure to play, then what the f are you doing? What do you hope to see the developers take away from their time in game, and what impact do you think it'll have on the future of development? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below. Also, hit me up if you're enjoying this kind of video. There will be plenty more guides dropping as 3.24 approaches, but it seemed fun to mix things up in the meantime. Also, feel free to drop by our community on Discord, and thank you as always to our growing community of Patreon and YouTube members who are showing their support. If you're thinking of playing Star Citizen, be sure to grab one of these excellent people's referral code on screen now and use it when you create your account to give them some great rewards and get yourself an extra 5,000 UEC to start with. This is University of Stanton, rant dismissed.